Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Chase Commercial Term Lending and New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Capital One Bank, the Wyckoff Group, Genova Burns, Giantomasi Webster, Greenberg Traurig. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Ariel Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, HAP Investment Developers, Herrick Feinstein, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, John Katsimides, Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey-Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, MHP Real Estate Services, People's United Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, CUNY TV Foundation, The Moynihan Group, Urban American, and These Friends.
Williamsburg before it was chic. Yeshivas over here. A truant. A girls' school, high school. 7 years at Brooklyn College. 8 years at Brooklyn College. Harvard. Loeb Rhodes. Shields and Company. D.H. Blair. Politicians. Community leader. I got the legendary Morty Davis. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. You didn't mention my most valuable, my precious asset.
What's your most precious asset?
My wife, my 4 daughters, 30 grandchildren.
That's the end of the show.
30 grandchildren.
You're giving
and 26 great-grandchildren. Okay, let's go to the end of the show.
Now, you were born, as I said, in the chic section of what we call today Williamsburg. Roebling Street? Where were you?
I lived on, in those days, we moved often, so I lived that one. When I was born, I lived on Ross Street, then we moved to Wilson Street, then to Division Avenue, then to Taylor Street.
And you said to me that your dad couldn't find a job. It was difficult to find a job. He originally was a peddler on Hester Street.
Well, he was a newly arrived immigrant.
He came
over. It was
over
the height
in
of the
1920.
Depression. He came over, and I was born in '29. It was the beginning of the Depression. He wouldn't work. He was very orthodox. He wouldn't work on Saturday. In those days, you couldn't get a job, even if you were willing to work on Saturday, because there was over 25% unemployment. So he was very frustrated. But what he did was he went into business for himself.
He was a jobber.
He had a push cart on Hester Street in Lower Manhattan.
And
I told you, Jackie Mason said his father was wiped out in a crash, the 29 crash, that his father had a push cart, and somebody jumped out a window and landed on his push cart. So he was wiped out in a crash. My father had that kind of push cart.
So your father had the push cart. And you said, since your family was rather ultra-religious, and you lived at the walk-up, you went to yeshiva. You went to...
Hebrew parochial school, Yeshiva Torah Vodaas, one of the great elite Hebrew schools in the nation, Orthodox.
But it had really an effect on your life over there. At the yeshiva, the rabbis, they felt that you weren't a good student. They slapped you in the face once, right?
They beat up most of us, and I think I told you the story. One time I was waiting for my mother. I was looking forward to it. I was 5 years old. My mother and her stepsister were going to take me to the circus. I was so excited. Suddenly I looked up. I was waiting all day. I looked up and my mother was at the door. She was very shy. She wouldn't walk in. So then I saw, I was very excited, but I looked up and suddenly the rabbi standing over me, he says, "Where's the place, Davidowitz?" That was my name. I used Davis functionally. So I went through Harvard Business School as Davidowitz. So I looked up and I hesitated, couldn't. He gave me one frost, one slap one shot in the head, one slap in the face. They call it a frosk in the pisk. He gave me one shot, and it lasted the whole day. And from that, what was going to be one of the most exciting days of my life turned out to be miserable. It turned into. So that was one day. I spent my childhood, actually. My father was, because newly arrived immigrant and not getting a job and frustrated, and he had a little temper, Hungarian temper, so he beat me up. After the first term of high school, I switched to I wasn't doing well, to another Hebrew school, a well-regarded school on the Lower East Side.
Now, but you didn't.
Rabbi Jacob Joseph High School.
You really didn't do much over there. You were a truant, as you said to me.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned to you, my grandmother was dying of cancer, and my mother spent the whole year serving her, watching over her, taking care of her. So she wasn't home much, and my father was there helping her, and he was working as well. So while I was supposed to be at school, I took off and I used to go to the Capitol or the Paramount in Manhattan. In those days, I saw Frank Sinatra. Every movie, 9 o'clock in the morning, had a new movie that was released. I didn't have any money. I wasn't working, so I did have a job delivering milk 5 o'clock in the morning, so I made some money. Most weeks I didn't even get paid because I was responsible for any bottles that broke, and it was a freezing winter in those days.
You had no flashlight, no nothing.
Yeah, I had a flashlight to look at the addresses. My teeth were chattering, and a lot of the bottles broke. So at the end of the year, I got nominal. And then, so I took some deposit bottles from my mother. I borrowed some money from a few coins it cost very little in those days.
So now what happens?
And then I went to the, yeah.
Then you go back to the yeshiva in Brooklyn with the fake transcript?
No, so every day I would take out the postcards. In those days there were no phones. They couldn't call your parents. They sent a postcard. Your son wasn't there. I put a bobby pin in and took out the postcard, tore it up, and then I went to the movie and did things that were fun. And so at the end of the term, I really flunked every course. I wasn't there. So when I came back, I went back to the old school that I had left, and I decided to make up a transcript. So I borrowed some stationery or whatever stationery, the school stationery, and I had my friend go into the office of the administrative office of the old school that I went to, typed up 4 grades and put marks next to them, decent marks. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't give myself all A's. And then I had another friend who had a flourishing handwriting, sign the principal's name, Dr. Winter, and then I turned it in. And they put me in 3rd term. I went from 1st term, 2nd term I didn't go, and then I was in 3rd term. I was there about 5-6 weeks doing well. I took a couple of exams, I was doing well. One day the principal comes and says, "I want to see your mother." So I called my mother, I followed instructions, and she came and brought me to his office, and he said, "Your son brought in he didn't say phony transcript, but that was
the alleged."
No, it was phony, but I didn't use phony. I forget what adjective he used. An inappropriate transcript, and the way he knew that was apparently there's supposed to be some gold seal that they press. So they said, "We're going to have to put him back in 2nd term." I wouldn't go back. I quit school completely.
So you quit school
at 14.
At 14, and this is also this time that you were working in the summers up in the Evans.
I worked at every summer, starting at 14, I worked in the summer as a busboy, and then as a few summers later as a waiter. I made good money, and you saved it all because
now, one of the things since
they fed you, they gave you a room, so everything you saved.
One of the interesting things that you learned when you were at the pool room and the bookie joints is you learned mathematics, you told me.
I said even though I was playing hooky, it was a good educational experience of what the real world's like. because in that pool room, it was above a tombstone.
Sprung Monument.
Sprung
Monument, you
right.
told me.
Sprung was married, Sprung's daughter was married to Alan King. At one time, I had one date with his daughter, the other daughter, not the one who was married to Alan King, the comedian. So it was on top of the first floor, and every Wednesday, 2 detectives came by. They couldn't care less if there was triple parked cars downstairs. They walked up, they collected their weekly payoff from the bookmaker at the pool room. So I learned that, and I learned a little math because I decided I was an avid Brooklyn Dodger fan. I said God could take my right arm if Dolph Camilli hit a home run. They were in last place, so it didn't make a difference, but I was just so in love with the Dodgers. After they moved, I cried, and I never was a baseball fan again.
Now, how do you decide?
So I decided no baseball team ever loses 10 games in a row. So I'm going to bet, the bookmaker was there, I'm going to bet every day and double my bet each time they lose. Unfortunately, I learned another thing, that when you bet, you shouldn't use your emotions, because I was in love with the Dodgers. I bet on the Dodgers every day. In those days, they and the St. Louis Cardinals were the best teams in the National League. That weekend, the Dodgers lost. Friday night, they played. Saturday, I doubled the bet. They played. Sunday, they lost 3 in a row. Each time, initially I bet $5. The second time I bet $10. Actually, you had to lay 6 to 5, pick them. You could, because they were about equally good. So you could pick either team, and you had to give odds of 6 to 5. So I was 6 to 5 the first day. Then I had to come up with $12 the second day, and then $24 the third day. I saw the effect of compounding. By the next day, time they played was Monday, and they were playing the Chicago Cubs. There were 2 problems. One, I couldn't come up with the larger amount.
Right.
And secondly, the Cubs were a very weak team, so instead of laying 6 to 5, if you picked the Dodgers, you had to give like 9 to 5 odds. But I couldn't, but I found out it was very good. I learned 2 things. You don't bet on love, you don't use your emotions, you got to use your analysis and wisdom. And secondly, the effect of compounding. I don't know if you realize, if you put a penny on the first space on a chessboard and you double it every space, you get, at the end, you get more than all the money in the world. That's the effect of compounding.
Now, what happens is you go back and you finally go to high school, and you finish high school.
After I drop out,
After you drop out,
I returned to a school that is in Brooklyn called Central Girls High. During the day, it was all girls, and the night it was co-ed. I have a diploma from Central Girls High hanging in my office at home. And my kids and grandkids always have to explain to their friends that I'm not a transvestite, because it says my name and it says graduate of Central Girls High.
you meet Rozzy over there when you're 17.
Over where? This is the book Rozzy wrote.
Right. And then subsequently,
It's great.
by the time you're 21, by the time you're 24, you have 3 children. You're going to Brooklyn
I got
College.
married at 21. Rozzy was not yet 18. We got married.
You're working a variety of part-time jobs. You're selling Electrolux, selling vacuums.
Yeah,
in
door to
Staten
door,
Island. You're trying to learn the engraving business. You're also
I had a lot of jobs as a grown-up. I was an engraver. I hated that job. I stabbed myself all the time. I worked as a furrier for a while. You stretch the skins at the back of the furs. I didn't realize that. It's very rough. Your hands bleed till they become calloused if you work there long enough.
You graduate Brooklyn College at what, 28 years of age?
28.
How does the kid who graduates Brooklyn College decide he's going to go to Harvard Business School?
My father didn't know anything about colleges. He knew about the best yeshivas, the parochial schools, but Hebrew parochial schools. They didn't know anything about Harvard. My brother was younger, never dropped out of school, so he went to Brooklyn College even before me. He was 20 months younger. And so one day in an economics course, one of his professors said, the average graduate of Harvard Business School, 10 years out, is earning $25,000 a year. That was unbelievable. It's more than if somebody said today, the average student 10 years out of Harvard Business School makes $25 million, because nobody made that kind of money. In my day, but if somebody had $10,000 in those days, of course the dollar would bought a lot more, but it was amazing. From that moment on, my brother said he's going to Harvard Business School. In due course, he graduated. He applied to Harvard Business School, got rejected, went to Columbia, got a master's in economics, applied again, and then went to Harvard Business School. Ultimately got a graduate, top of his class, got a doctorate, became a professor at Harvard. When he told me about it, then I made up my mind, and I studied like crazy. I locked my kids out of the door. I just went over and over everything, and I got all A's.
How do you decide
and
to
I
get
got
into the brokerage business? During your second year at Harvard, you got a job with the legendary Loeb Road.
Yeah, that was the largest firm, clearing firm. In other words, they had a lot of correspondents that looked to them for clearing their business and getting their research. So I worked there in the research department. Great job. Thank God I got that job because it taught me one thing. At the end of the summer, I used to do reports, and Monday morning I'd review the Standard & Poor's and the Moody's, all the research, and send it out to all our correspondents and all our internal brokers and to the owner of the firm, everybody. Dr. Renner, head of the department, the research department, came over and said, Davidowitz, you don't belong in research. And I said to him, why? Why am I not right for research? He says, Davidowitz, you don't have the S for it. I said, what do you mean? He says, to do research, you got to be willing to sit 8-10 hours a day and look at
numbers,
spreadsheets, and he was right. I would have just suffered. After I had a classmate at Harvard who was my top classmate at Harvard. He went to work. He could have got a job with anyway. He went to work for General Motors during that summer. He came back. He said, Morty, if I have to sell hot dogs on Wall Street from a little stand, I would never go back to work for a big corporation. After I graduated, Shields recruited me. They said, we're doing a lot of business with Jewish entrepreneurs and businesses, and we don't have a Jewish partner. It was a big deal in those days to be a partner of a brokerage firm. With your resume and your background and
your work ethic
and your work ethic and your back, we'd like you to join us, and you'd become the first partner, and we want you in management. We plan to open an office uptown, and you would manage that office, and ultimately they did at 666 Fifth Avenue. They opened a great office. I worked 6 months as a manager after I started with them, and all I was doing was every day handling the complaints of clients or the issues that the brokers had. The brokers were making all the money, and I was handling all if they had a problem, they brought it to me. After a while, I said, this is not for me. I want to make the money they do. You determine your own income, because whenever you make a sale, you get 50% commission in those days. So I don't have to ask the boss how much for a raise. When am I going to get it? I just worked late. I worked very hard. I never took lunch breaks. They all took lunch breaks and coffee breaks. They thought I was antisocial. I wasn't. But I told my secretary, just order me up a sandwich. I ate it while I was, and I kept on the phone day in and day out. I only stopped calling, and I didn't ever stop calling because I was tired. I stopped calling because people said, you got a hell of a lot of nerve calling at this hour of the night. I figured it's counterproductive. But I went in weekends, I went in Sundays, I went in even Saturday evening after the Sabbath. Within 2 years, I started in 59, right after I graduated in June of 59 at Shields, and in 61, December of 61, I was invited to be a partner because I became the second most productive broker in the whole Shields chain.
So now you find a company called D.H. Blair, been around for many years, but really, they were really money brokers in certain things, selling securities.
They were like the Salomon Brothers. They were money brokers.
They were money brokers.
Who bought a stock.
Right.
See, as a matter of fact, the guy who recruited me was a partner at Shields when he was the floor partner. He owned the seat. And he's the one that recruited me to come to Blair. He went, and so I joined Blair as a 1% partner.
But one of the things that you did at D.H. Blair is, over your career, you've raised over $3 billion. You've taken at least 400 to 500 companies public.
I did 400 companies, mostly early stage startups.
But how do you decide that you want to get involved with these biotech companies
I wanted to,
in the health sciences area?
Good question, Michael. It's a good question because I always wanted, more than anything, because I care about my family and myself and people that I love, I want to come up with cures for all of the terrible maladies that people suffer. So I said, I don't care if I make money, if I had to lose all my money, if I could come up with a cure for cancer or for heart disease or for diabetes, I wouldn't care. I'll start all over again. So my goal was to fund companies that were related to that activity. So I did biotech, I did pharmaceutical, I did healthcare. Overwhelmingly, at least half the companies I did were related to that field.
Now, you were also heavily involved in the telecommunications when the world was changing, right?
Well, I did the first, I did a company called Thai Communications. Before that, the only ones that could sell phones, that could provide phones, was a telephone company.
Now,
I put $100,000 into it as a startup. I got back $14 million.
Right.
It's in my book.
Right. How do you decide to write the book Hard Knocks to Hot Stocks?
It's really
I mean, Louis Rukeyser wrote the foreword for this, I remember.
yeah, and Larry King endorsed it.
Right.
Donald Trump said it's great.
How do you decide to write the book?
I wrote it because I thought it would be fun for me to do. It's autobiographical, and it also gives a lot of good advice on how to become rich in the stock market. I wish I followed some of the discipline I preached, because I'd be a far wealthier man.
Now, you said to me
it's a great book.
when you turned 60, a couple of your friends had become sick and had passed on, and you decided that you wanted to get rid of the retail brokerage side of D.H. Blair and remain.
Well, you got it right. You stated it wrong, though, in this sense. I didn't want to get rid of it. It was making a lot of money. 3 of my friends that I grew up with from childhood, within 1 year at 60, died. I said, if they died, they're my contemporaries. I grew up with them. I'm probably going to die shortly. So I decided, for estate planning purposes, that I would turn over the firm to my 2 son-in-laws, my 4 daughters, but my 2 son-in-laws that were active at the firm as brokers, and the president of the company, a British guy who I had recruited to run the firm. And I did that, and I sold it to them at a very reasonable price. I got an evaluation from a major accounting firm, as little as I could, which was book value, and I lent them the money to buy it. They were able to pay me back the purchase price within a year and a half. So I divested the brokerage, which required a lot of people and a lot of operation headaches, to them, and I retained the investment banking, the portion that did the IPOs, initial public offerings, and venture capital.
Now, also over those years, you've been very involved with the community, giving back to the community. Many years ago, you did some work with Mount Sinai, I remember.
Yeah, I gave through the good graces of Gus Levy, who was then the chairman of Goldman Sachs. He induced me to donate money. 2 students get a scholarship every year at the Mount Sinai Medical School.
Now, you've also been heavily involved at one time with the Cy Sim Schools of Business of Yeshiva University.
I serve on the boards of both. I'm now sort of retired from the board, so what is it called?
Emeritus.
Emeritus. I'm emeritus. A nice title. But I still go to meetings of both the Cy Sim Business School and the Yeshiva University College.
And you've always been a good friend, this supporter of major politicians around the world. We have many pictures of you with Dole, with Clinton, and other people also.
Yeah, I'm eclectic. I supported Ronald Reagan, and I loved Bill Clinton, and I'm friendly with Hillary, and my wife and I have met almost all of them and have become friendly with, and also international.
You and Rosie have been married to how many years now?
Oh my God. I don't know if Rosie will appreciate this, because she still says she's like 22. But we've been married 63 years.
Now, and how many children do you have?
I have 4 daughters.
And their names?
Esty, Rookie, Rifki, and Leo.
How many grandchildren?
But we're on to grandchildren, and so far, last week we had our 27th grandchild.
You know, for some young person wanting to get into Wall Street today, what would be the key to the success that you attributed in your life?
Well, first of all, I wanted to go to Wall Street before I went to Harvard, and I didn't know how to get a job. First of all, I was totally backward. I had a meeting one time with the head of sales, and at Etna Life. And I wore black shoes and white socks, and then I was so backward, I wanted to be proper. He invited me to a place in the Wall Street area called White's. At that time was a highly regarded restaurant, and I ordered a tuna fish sandwich, and I thought, I didn't know what to do. I started to eat a tuna fish sandwich with a knife and fork, and he said, Morty, it's all right, you could pick it up. So I didn't know how to, and also I wasn't tenacious enough. I just asked, and then they said, no, we don't have any jobs. I found that because when people came to me, I'd say, I don't have any jobs. And then the ones that were tenacious and called again and again and again, I said, that guy I got to hire because he's so determined and tenacious. If he's that way with me, he's going to be tenacious with all of it. And it worked out. You know, I found very good people that way. So, and also what helped a lot was when I first came to Shields, I interviewed, I didn't interview, I looked for sort of advice from their top salesman. And I said, well, what do you do to become the top guy? He says, in those days it was possible to do, now it's harder to do. He said, just don't get off the phone. Keep making calls. 1 out of 100 is waiting for you. You'll get rejected, but don't worry about it. The next one, keep calling. So I just stood there, made calls and calls, cold calls.
I've known you many years. D.H. Blair is legendary. Morty Davis or Davidovitz, okay? You know, what you've done for the world of, biotech companies, taking them public, early stage companies, has been great. And thanks for being here today.
It's my pleasure. You're one great guy.